I'm live. Hello. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Wednesday. Welcome to this Wednesday live at 5. So nice of you to join. Don't go anywhere. I'm going to play a little intro, let people get a little ease on into the moment, right? I won't be long. Don't go anywhere. I see there's people watching, and we'll be right back. I've got a special guest today, David Krayden, and we have so much to talk about. You don't want to miss it. Hang in there.
Like my friend Anita Krishna in Canada, she worked for a global news or a big news network. She started to ask just regular questions. She's like, isn't that what we're supposed to be doing? We're a news organization. Isn't that what we do as a news organization? And she got fired for that, of course.
Yes, I did. Thank you very much, Jimmy Dore. I'm very proud to say that I can call him my friend. And standing by, that's going to join me very soon, is a great podcaster from Ottawa. You know him, David Krayden. I can call him my friend. Also, we're all becoming so friendly. It's funny because the people in the mainstream media, they don't talk to me anymore. I wonder why. Honestly, I wonder why. But we have a lot to talk about. There's so much, as always, going on. It's so hard to keep up. But before I get into some of the politics and some of the things that I want to talk about, that like these liberal ministers who seem to be absolutely clueless when it comes to basic things about their job. I mean, let me just indulge me for 1 second. I was a TV director for a long time, which means that I worked in a control room and I directed newscasts. You could basically plonk me into any control room across the country, and I don't even have to know anything. You give me a rundown in a show, and I'll make the show happen based on my experience, right? That's the job that I know. Now, having been fired from that job, if you plonk me in a situation where all of a sudden you ask me to go drywall something, I don't really know what I'm doing. But if I was supposed to drywall something, you better believe I'm going to brief myself. I'm going to watch videos. I'm going to train myself. And if I have to go and do that job, I'm going to do it. But I feel like the ministers that we've hired, they don't brief themselves. They don't prepare. They seem to be so unknowledgeable. So it's annoying. You know, that is their job. That is their expertise. And they should know what they're doing when they go and stand up in question period or at committee hearings, and they don't. And it's extremely frustrating to watch. But anyway, speaking of people that don't talk to me anymore, I want to play you a little clip from CTV with an anchor that I used to work with. But not that she doesn't like me, but we just don't talk anymore. I don't know. But I used to work with her quite a bit. But anyway, that's besides the point. I want to touch on something. We're supposed to be all elbows up in this country. And my premier is David Eby. This guy doesn't want pipelines, doesn't want business to flourish. I don't know what this wants. I don't know what he wants. I don't know how he gives the NDP raises while he cuts programs, doesn't want a pipeline, and proposes to support Canadian businesses or BC businesses while he takes liquor off the shelf, while he says buy BC. He's not really fundamentally supporting that. So some news has just come out that BC ferries, okay, we're going to get new ferries built, but they're not going to be by Canadian companies at all. Here, watch this.
BC Ferries has chosen a Chinese company to build 4 new major vessels to replace an aging fleet. The publicly owned company says China Merchants Industry Weihai Shipyards has won the contract. BC Ferries isn't saying how much the shipyard will be paid to protect future bids. The team says 20 shipyards around the world pre-qualified for the procurement process. There were also site reviews, reference checks, and contracts with third-party assessors before deciding on Weihai.
This shipyard has given us the best combination of good experience, technical capability, size and scale, safety management, affordability, and confidence that they can deliver the ships that we need on the schedule that we require.
BC Ferries says no Canadian shipbuilder put in a bid for review. The new vessels will come into service between 2029 and 2031. And for the first time, the new ships will feature an indoor play space for pets.
For pets, whoopee ding dong. You know, the thing you're going to hear, you just heard her say in that story, there was no Canadian company that put in a bid. So if you're watching mainstream news, you're going to hear that, because on City TV, they're saying the same thing. On other channels, they're saying the same thing. So all the mainstream is running that script. And what it does is it leads you to believe that, no, the Canadian companies, no, nobody put in a bid. So sorry. So we had to give it to a Chinese company. That's not entirely accurate. There is another part to that story. So for the Canadian shipbuilders, when the request for proposals was issued last September, Canadian shipbuilder Seaspan said in a statement that Canadian shipyards and their supply chains cannot compete with low-wage countries that have lower employment standards, lower environmental standards, and lower safety standards than Canada and BC. So they couldn't compete with what China is offering, because we have labor codes, we have union wages, we have standards that need to be upheld. So when you hear Mi Jung Lee on CTV say no Canadian company put their hand up, it's like, you don't think that we want the job? You think that we want to send that to China? No, we don't. So as you heard, the winning bidder is Chinese state-owned China Merchants Industry Weihai Shipyards. And the CEO, Nicholas Jimenez of BC Ferries, is like, well, we just want the best deal. We want to keep the geopolitics out of it. What hogwash? They should all be vying for Canadian companies to build these ferries. You know, and so this is David Eby. This is your David Eby, or it's not yours. We're stuck with this bugger. I don't even know how we voted for him. But as you'll know, China and Canada, we're in a trade dispute, right? So we've got retaliatory tariffs on canola and on peas, seafood, and other things, right? So because we have the tariff, 100% tariff on their electric cars. So this is a mess. It's an absolute mess. And I was really upset to hear that a Chinese company would be building our ferries. But anyway, so I just thought I'd let you know that. Now, time for our guest. Let me bring in Mr. David Krayden. David Krayden, thank you for joining me today.
I feel
Nice
like
to
I'm
see-
back home. I'm back home. I love BC. I just love being on this time zone. That's fantastic. You know, I grew up in BC, Vancouver Island. And
Yeah.
this is my home. It's so nice to be talking to you. It really is.
Did you ride the ferries much?
Did I ride the ferries much? Yes, I rode the ferries constantly because I was on Vancouver Island. I
Yes.
was raised on Comox, the Air Force Base. And of course, we always had to get to Vancouver sooner or later. And yes, I rode the ferries. But you know what? In those days, they were read by a government that had a free enterprise economy, and it was called the Bill Bennett Social Credit Government. It was the Bill Vander Zalm Social Credit Government. It was a government that made sense, unlike the socialist commie government you have in BC right now. Get rid of these people. They are toxic, not just to BC, but anybody who has common sense thinking.
Well, I can't believe, this is why you're not allowed to talk about certain things on certain platforms, but I'm staggered that this person was elected, they say by a hair, like that we have EB. Like, it's just so frustrating. And then of course, nationally, we've got, federally, we got our Carney, but like these people that have been no good are back in power. It's shocking, isn't it?
It is absolutely shocking, because I think we learned over the last couple of elections that the BC New Democrats are no good for the province. They are constantly putting this province in bad waters. Why did people re-elect this government? Clearly, it was a close call the last time around, and they seem to have just squeaked by. But I don't know what's going on with this province, because BC should be one of the leading political jurisdictions in the world. It's got all the natural resources. It's got everything that would make people want to be tourists. They
Yeah.
had that when I grew up there. What's going on with this communist leader? Because this guy, what drives me crazy here is that
Yeah.
the worst example of BC is Gregor Robertson, the former mayor of Vancouver. He's now the housing minister under the Mark Carney government. Nobody could be worse in terms of trying to solve the housing crisis because Gregor Robertson made things twice as bad in Vancouver while he was there. He made Vancouver the most expensive city to live in North America. More expensive than New York City, more expensive than San Francisco, more expensive than Los Angeles. So I don't know what's going on with the mentality this day, but God help us from the worst examples of civilization from Britain. Yeah.
Well, it's like the inept just keep getting promoted. It is so frustrating. I did see Gregor Robertson in Question Period, and he was attacking Polyev for housing or something that he only got 6 units built. I think it was 6 units that housed a lot of people. This was back in the day under Harper, and I think it amounted to, I don't know, 200,000 or something like that, actual units. But he stood up when he was questioned about his housing, and he sort of slammed Polyev. And there was Chrystia Freeland going, "Good answer, Gregor." Like that. I thought she was going to wipe his bottom after that. She's like a mom. You're not his mom. You're the same age virtually. Anyway, you know, that's I just found her to be like, she's like the mom. She'll come in and rescue Carney if he says the wrong thing. She'll go, "Oh, good answer, Gregor, good answer." Like,
No, what's
yeah,
what strikes me about the cabinet right now is that he Mark Carney has appointed some of the most incompetent people imaginable
oh,
to the jobs they've been appointed to. And Gregor Robertson, it just begins there. You can
yeah,
also look at the Attorney General, Sean Fraser. Total failure in everything he did. He's been somehow pointed upwards to the Attorney General after being a failure at housing,
yeah,
after being a failure at immigration. And I was scratching my head and saying, why is he doing this? Why is he appointing such incompetence for these roles? And it occurred to me last week.
yeah,
He wants incompetence to fulfill these roles because Mark Carney is going to be his own housing minister. He's going to be his own attorney general. He's going to be everything because Mark Carney doesn't want advice. Mark Carney doesn't want opinion. Mark Carney doesn't want to govern with the help of his cabinet. Mark Carney is going to govern by himself in the back room with the globalists. That's what's going on. And I keep saying, I've seen this movie before. I've seen it. I know how it ends. I know what's going to happen. And it's exactly what I imagine is going to happen. Every week I see it unfolding exactly as I've seen the movie envelop. And it's scary. It's absolutely frightening.
yeah.
We have a dictator in charge right now.
Yeah, it is like a movie. I feel like I am watching a movie. I am disappointed because this is our lives. This isn't a joke, right? This, if I want to watch Netflix, I watch Netflix, but I watch Question Period. And you're absolutely right, at the people that he has appointed, because they are the people that nod and they do what they're told. They're given their instructions, they're given their orders, and they do what they're told. Now, we have some very exciting people that are on the conservative, that are new to the Conservative Party. A lot of MPs that are making a huge difference, like Aaron Gunn and Andrew Lawton. You really cannot. They're quite articulate, oh, there was a new one, Matt Straub, I believe. Anyway, these guys come prepared. They're very articulate. It really helps that Andrew Lawton was a broadcaster before too, because he knows how to do it. He's so good at it. And the liberal ministers are no match for these guys. and they have their asses handed to them, but still nothing happens because the news won't show it that way. But this brings me to Gary. This guy, what's his name? I'm Indian. I can't pronounce his name. His name is Gary. And
Ananda Singh, I think.
Ananda Sangari. Gary Ananda Sangari, South Indian name. Yeah. But this fella, he did not come prepared. It was embarrassing. And what are the consequences going to be? I'll play a clip. It's 2 minutes long. This is a clip. Many of you might have seen it, but it's like, it's fascinating. Fascinating to watch. Here it comes.
Mr. Chair, under the Liberal drug decriminalization policy that actually exists right now for fentanyl, crystal meth, and crack cocaine, drug dealers are allowed to store more than 1,000 lethal doses of fentanyl in their homes. Does the minister believe that this policy makes Canadians safer?
Minister. Mr. Speaker, this is a question that should be addressed to the Minister of Health.
Mr. Chair, does the minister believe that someone who's high on crystal meth wandering the streets of downtown Vancouver or Toronto poses a risk to public safety?
The Honourable Minister. Again, Mr. Speaker, this is something that should be addressed to the Minister of Health. Very brief. 2 seconds.
Same question, yes or no. Someone high on crystal meth, an issue of public safety, yes or no?
The Minister. Mr. Speaker, this is a matter that should be addressed to the Minister of Health.
What other types of firearms have been banned that the government will be seizing?
I'm the Minister. Those that are scheduled to be bought back will be removed. I can't tell you the specific ones, but they're in the schedule.
I'm a member. Does the minister have an RPAL?
Minister. Can you repeat that question?
I'm a member. I'll rephrase, Chair. Does the minister know what an RPAL is?
I'm a minister. I do not. Member.
Does the minister know what the CFSC is?
I'm a minister. I do not know. Member.
I'll stipulate, Chair, that is the Canadian firearm safety course that all gun owners in Canada have to do to get their firearms license. Has the minister ever done the Canadian firearm safety course?
I'm a minister. Speaker, it's my third week on the job. No, I have not. The honourable member.
Does the minister know what safety classes and safety demands are expected of law-abiding Canadian gun owners?
The honourable minister. This is not about law-abiding gun owners, Mr. Speaker.
How can the minister make that claim when he doesn't know the basic fundamentals of law-abiding gun ownership in this country, Chair?
Isn't that awful? Like I was saying at the top of the show, I don't know anything about drywalling, but if that was part of my job, I would learn, right? And he is Gary Ananda Sangari is the Liberal Minister of Public Safety.
Yes, I know.
And emergency preparedness.
You watch that and you think, has this guy even studied his file? And clearly he has not. He has no idea what's going on within his jurisdiction. It's embarrassing, but it's beyond embarrassing. It's what the hell is going on in this country? Why do we have people this incompetent running ministries who clearly, when I watched this the first time, and I've seen this is probably the fifth time I've watched this, and I've run this on my own program, because we have to keep running it. Because this is exactly how incompetent the ministries are. When I first saw this, I thought of that old BBC sitcom called Yes, Minister, which focused on the incompetence of government ministers, and whether they were conservative or labor or whatever in that particular time zone. It was because these people didn't know their jurisdiction, didn't understand what they were talking about, and took their talking points from their underlings. Well, this guy can't even remember the talking points. It's beyond embarrassing.
Yeah.
He can't even remember what his people told him to say. And they know this is coming.
Yes.
And I worked in the Hill for 8 years. Anita, I worked in the Hill for 8 years. I know how this game is played. They know what's coming. They know they're going to be getting a question about this even before it's asked. They're prepared for it. This guy couldn't even prepare for the answer. That's what makes it so embarrassing. And that's what makes people out there saying, Really? Is he really that stupid? Yeah, he's that stupid. But he's so stupid, he couldn't even bother to get the talking points prepared in front of him because he knew these questions were coming from the official opposition. This is how bad it is. They don't even care if they're ready for the answers. And I watch this and I'm nauseous watching this guy because
Well, I've got more for you. Yeah. Well, the thing
he's
is,
so incompetent.
well, they would be briefed, as you say. You worked on the Hill. I never worked in politics. So I imagine they're now the minister. He's now the Minister of Emergency Preparedness and Public Safety. So he'll get his briefing notes. And so I would imagine that the basics he should know. And so when Andrew Lawton asked him, do you know about RPAL? Well, I don't know what RPAL is, but it takes 5 seconds to look it up. It's your restricted firearms license. He should know that. He couldn't even answer like what kind of guns that were meant to be removed or what they're doing. It's like he had no background on what he was talking about. And also he didn't know about the CFSC, the Canadian Firearms Safety Course. Why would he be so misinformed at the end of the day? Is it because it doesn't matter? There's no consequences?
That's precisely it. It doesn't matter to him. That's what he's saying to the world, to Canada. It doesn't matter to me. You can be as well versed as you want to be about legally owning firearms, what you have to do. I don't care because I follow the instructions of Mark Carney, who is part of the globalist agenda. So I don't care either. That's what he's saying. It would have taken exactly 30 seconds for his underlings to figure out what they were talking about. He didn't care to bother. That's really what he's saying. He's not just saying I'm stupid. He's not just saying I'm ignorant. He's saying I don't care. And Mark Carney doesn't care either.
Mark Carney would be disappointed in that performance because I think, even though Mark Carney is a terrible performer to that extent, this comment here is making me laugh because every time I've seen Gary before, because I never see him speak, I always think, are you storing nuts for the winter? What are in your cheeks, right? He's got the most enormous cheeks. And I thought, when you see I'm not trying to pick on the way he looks because sometimes I look like a raccoon, I know, but sometimes you see a trumpet player, he looks like he's playing the trumpet, but there is no trumpet or whatever. He's just an odd looking man with the cheeks. Come on, you got to admit that, right? But anyway, not to pick on him, but the worst part is his lack of.
That's very true. Yeah.
I can't get over it. Chipmunk cheeks, you blew it. Literally, you blew it, Chipmunk. And I hope that there are consequences and repercussions, at least from our side, at least from alternative media. But there's more. There's another minister. I mean, it just goes on with these people. The Minister of Immigration, the immigration minister, the new one, right? I forget the old. Yeah.
Bring it on, please.
This one, yeah. I forget the old one's name, the ginger one, the guy who had the ginger hair. But this one here, let's have a listen to what she's had to say recently about EV cars. I told you, like last time I interviewed with you, I cannot sit in an electric car. It gives me a headache. There's something, I feel like I'm being cooked, like in a microwave in the car. I cannot have my country tell me not to have a gasoline vehicle. No, thank you. And this crazy nut job is going for exactly that.
Mr. Chair, the Liberals promised 100% zero emissions car sales by 2035 in their platform. Does the minister intend to keep that policy? Yes or no?
Minister.
Mr. Chair, let me begin by saying that it has been absolutely one of the worst things to see the unjustified tariffs from the United States against our auto sector. We will have our auto sectors back, and the workers in that industry, we have their backs.
Do you intend to keep that policy? Yes or no?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Chair, as I mentioned before, as we move forward, we need to make sure that everything we do.
Chair, does the minister intend to keep that policy? Yes or no?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Chair, the transportation sector is actually 27% of Canada's GHGs.
Is the government's target for 100% zero emissions vehicle sales by 2035 mandatory or optional?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Chair, he's aware that the regulation sets us towards targets to increase the number of sales of EVs across our country.
Sorry, she's the Minister of Environment and Climate Change. That's what she is. Yeah. And again, she has her orders. She knows that she has to pump this up. She knows that this is the direction that they want to point Canadians to. Oh, you get rebates. You're going to have EV. Like, this is terrifying to me because I don't want one of these cars. I don't want to drive a car that can be turned off or can drive itself. What do you think about this?
Well, I showed this clip as well on my program this week to demonstrate how a Liberal minister is incapable of answering a question in one direct statement. She eventually gets around to saying, yes, we're going to outlaw gas-powered cars. We admit it. We admit it. Okay. But it took her literally almost 10 minutes to do so. Right. So I actually said, well, thank God the previous minister of the environment, Stephen Guilbeault, actually would be honest and say, yes, we want to take your cars away. We're gonna stop building roads. We're gonna create a Canada you've never seen before. But what is going on with Mark Carney and his ministers? They want to pretend to have it both ways. So we have a minister here who's saying, I'm not going to answer your question, at least in the next 5 minutes. I'm not going to say that, yes, we don't want to have gas-powered vehicles beyond 2030, which is where Mark Carney stands. He doesn't want to say that. So what? He has this idiot standing in the line for 10 minutes saying everything else. But at least, my God, at least his former environment and climate change minister would have said immediately, yes, we're going to ban cars. Immediately, we're going to do that by 2030. And if you don't like that, go ahead, do something about it. But this disgusts me because Mark Carney is playing a game. He's playing the game that I'm not really what I seem to be. I'm not really what I came my entire career to be, which is an environmental extremist from the WF who wants to take away your land, your property, your thoughts, and everything else. That's what Mark Carney's all about. He wants to destroy Canada as it is, as it will be, as it could be. That's what Mark Carney is all about. But he's pretending right now to be something else, almost a small C conservative. And I'll tell you this, it's crap.
Yes, yeah. I think this is just a fallacy, isn't it? This thing that he's come to save Canada. I've said that many times before. Why would you give up your $1,000,000,000 job to come here and earn $400,000 on a prime minister's salary? It's because you love us. You love us so much. You love Canada so much that this country that you chose not to live in for most of your adult life. This is how much you love us. Like I think he's come to bankrupt the country, and there are certain premiers that are on his side, like an EB, that this is their jam, obviously. So yes, this Julie on EVs, and it took her a long time to actually admit it, right? But they just speak in these weird platitudes and they don't end up saying anything. I find that's what's frustrating, but they will lead us down this path. And I think that these people don't even realize what they're mixed up in. These ministers, I think some of them don't get it. What about you? What do you think?
That's a very profound statement, Anita, because I think that's probably what's going on here with a lot of these people. I'm willing to give them that. I think there's a portion of the Liberal MPs and the ministers who really thought Mark Carney was a departure from Justin Trudeau, that he represented a new beginning. And of course, if you listen to Mark Carney on day-to-day basis, he keeps talking about this new Canadian government. He never talks about the Carney government or the Liberal government. It's always a new Canadian government. And I think a lot of them bought into this. This was going to be a complete changeover from Justin Trudeau, who was And they all said, the guy went crazy on us. He was nuts in the beginning, and he was nuts in the end, even more so. However, they don't seem to realize that Mark Carney is picking up where Justin Trudeau left off and bringing Canada to a very dangerous place. He's taking us beyond what Justin Trudeau even imagined.
Yeah.
I talked to Justin Trudeau's half brother last week, Kyle Kemper, and I said, what do you really think's going on here? And he said Justin didn't realize what was going on. He always thought he was in control of the process. Mark Carney knows he's in control of the process, and he's taking Canada way beyond what Justin ever imagined it was going to go in. This is why Mark Carney is more dangerous in so many ways than Justin Trudeau ever was.
Because you believe he actually knows this agenda, whereas some people are just dumb. Like, I can say that from working in the news. Like, a lot of people, the people that knew didn't speak up, and they cut because they didn't want to lose their jobs. There were some people that just didn't know. They really thought that they were doing the right thing, and they didn't understand how dangerous this was, the things that we were doing to people with the passports and the mandatory things, and they weren't getting how awful this was and how we were tearing apart society. Because I ran into somebody I used to work with not too long ago. He worked in the feeds department, like pulling the video and recording video. That guy, that was his job. Anyway, and he goes, well, Anita, we didn't know. It was like all new. We were doing our best. No, you weren't. You don't get it. You're not doing your best. There were no mistakes being made by the news during that time that I won't bring up because it shadow bans our channel. But anyway, I'm going to move on to something. I talked about this last week by myself. It is summertime, and I have a 15-year-old son. I have a 19-year-old and a 15-year-old. And he was saying to me last week, oh, maybe I'll get a job, right? Like popping popcorn, maybe not flipping burgers, but working in a store or something like that. And I'm like, what? I said, good luck getting a job, because you can't find a darn job because of what's going on. Like my teenage son's friends cannot find jobs at London Drugs, Shoppers Drug Mart, Canadian Tire, Rona. It's bad. So this brings me to immigration. I'm going to play this clip of Michelle Rempel Garner taking this new lady to task. And I also think the new immigration minister is just completely overwhelmed. At the end of this video, I thought she was going to cry. Here it is.
All the statistics show that they've actually increased those numbers. And meanwhile, Canadians can't get into an emergency room. Why are they persisting in bringing in hundreds of thousands of students and temporary foreign workers on temporary visas when people can't find jobs?
Sure.
Completely, let's use the facts here. Her numbers are totally inaccurate. There's been 290,000 net new arrivals into Canada through the International Student Program. I don't know where she comes up with numbers. I would contextualize the numbers that she seems to read.
Sure.
For you, Mr. Chair, the reality is that there were way less than 290,000 housing starts last year, and there's a lot more than 290,000 people waiting for family doctors right now. Why is she persisting in raising immigration levels when people can't find a doctor or a job?
Yeah, Minister.
So, Mr. Chair, again, I would say we are working on sustainable immigration. We have committed to reduce the temporary numbers as well as our permanent residency numbers. Canada.
The honourable member.
What's not sustainable is that there's 500,000 people, roughly 500,000 people, as of December, who need to be removed from the country. How many have been removed?
The honourable minister.
Again, Mr. Chair, I say to you, those numbers are taken way out of context.
Are they, though? Are they? I mean, just look around. When you go to Tim Hortons, when you go to Walmart, you know what I'm saying? And I can say it because I'm Indian, right? Like, even my son is like, oh my God, there's so many. Like, you go to IKEA, what happens is that it changes the landscape of your country. Like, I was born here, born in Vancouver. I'm as Canadian as the day is long, but with my own culture, my own background. But my dad came here in 1971 and completely embraced Canadian culture. And we keep our own culture. I mean, that's what I think it should be, immigration. But what happens is when it pushes you so far, there's a backlash, and it almost breeds racism. It almost turns it on. Yeah.
Exactly, and I'm so glad. I have to say that Michelle Rempel Garner is back as the immigration critic. She was fantastic during the I think it was the O'Toole period when she was immigration critic. I used to have her on Daily Caller every other day. I was talking to her, and she got mad at me because I criticized her over a totally unrelated issue. But I hope we can get back together because she's a fantastic critic in this area, and I'm listening to this and I'm saying, haven't I heard this before? Because here we go. The Liberal government let in hundreds of thousands of illegals during Justin Trudeau's tenure. They let in literally 1 million people legally in the last year. They've changed the change of this country, and it's got nothing to do with race. I keep saying that to people. It's not race. It's culture. It's ethnicity. It's what you believe in Canada. I mean, if you're born here, you're born a Canadian. If you come here because you escape communism, or you escape totalitarianism, or you escape another sort of country that is coming down on your democratic rights, that's why you come here. You don't come to Canada just because it's more convenient for you. That's what the immigration system has become in this country. The Liberals have brought in hundreds of thousands, millions of people who are here just to vote for them. Nothing else. They're not refugees. They're not here because they're afraid of their lives. They're not here because they think they're going to die in their other country. They're here to vote for Liberals. That's what the Liberal Party has done to immigration in this country. It's a crime. It must be punished. And the people who did this should be punished. But they're not going to be, because they want to keep this going, because it's got nothing to do with immigration, and it's got nothing to do with justice. It's got everything to do with electing more Liberals. And it scares the hell out of me, because the character of China, of this country, is becoming more like China every day. We're becoming more into a social credit system of government. We're becoming more like we have to serve the government and make our narrative more like the government's narrative every day. And that scares the hell out of me. That's not the Canada I was born into, and I grew up into, and I wanted my children to grow up into. It's a Canada that's been distorted and completely corrupted by successive Liberal regimes.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I don't recognize Canada the way I did in the 70s and 80s when I was growing up. I was a minority. And I full well realized that I was a minority, and there was a little bit of racism, which I was not cool with at all, but we had to strive kind of through that. But now I think that having immigration, having culture, having more people come is wonderful. But like with anything, we don't know how to rein it in. We have to tip the bucket so far that it is upsetting people. Just like how I was talking about last week, when I was young, we had all these androgynous pop stars: David Bowie, Boy George, Prince, Annie Lennox, Grace Jones. Like, I grew up in the 80s, so listening to them, right? And come on, look at David Bowie. He was probably one of the most androgynous dudes ever. And he was he's one of my favorite artists, right? And even Prince and stuff like that. And Boy George. So we would go to school, but nobody made a big deal about it. It was just like nobody then wanted to take hormones or puberty blockers. Nobody was removing their body parts. Nobody was questioning this to the extent that they would alter their own bodies physically. We never did that, and I'm wondering why we never did that. I think it's because we were not taught that. Society wasn't pressuring that. It was just, we just live and let live. What do you think?
Well, precisely. It was theatrical. It was show.
Yeah.
And I grew up in precisely the same era.
Yeah.
Um, and I remember the same pop stars you're talking about.
Yeah.
I chose to admire and emulate pop stars from a different era because those pop stars didn't appeal to me. I loved Frank Sinatra when I was growing up in the 80s, and I still am singing Frank Sinatra songs today as a singer, because that to me is what a man is. But you can be whatever you want. You can masquerade whatever you want. I'm a libertarian. Live and let live. We all have the same rights. We all have the same. We are all represented by the same law. But what the hell has happened to this country where we now think we can totally emasculate and kill children because we think they might change their gender someday, or they're going through a gender dysphoria. This is absolute insanity. And I am standing by that. And I am hearing that from everybody that I talk to, whether they be Christian, Muslim, Jewish, Hindu, or anything else. There's a unity today amongst Canadians who are saying enough of the dysphoria that's spreading. We have to get together as people who all believe the same thing.
You're just making me think of a little bit of American news that we can touch on, but there's an Olympic gymnast, Simone Biles, who made a comment about men in women's sports. Like, she thinks trans is okay to have in women's sports. And Riley Gaines, the swimmer, I don't know if you've heard of her, but she's like, no, we can't have this. You keep men in men's sports and women's sports, and they're having a big tiff. But I think someone like Simone Biles, I don't think she's again, like I said before, I don't think these people are evil. They really don't get it. It's what she's been taught in her generation. So she thinks she's being accepting. It's okay. You can have a trans man in women's sports. Like, we accept everyone. But she's not quite getting, and she should get, the physiological and biological differences. It's funny, isn't it? They're just not raised that way.
It's very funny because Mark Carney stood in front of the gay pride being raised yesterday and pretended somehow the gay and lesbians aren't equal in the society. Of course they are. They have been for decades.
Yeah.
And they will continue to be so. So what's his problem? His problem is because Donald Trump has said there's two genders. That's his problem. He doesn't want to say that about Canada. And a lot of Canadians do want to say that about Canada. But the fact is, we need to move on from identity politics in Canada. We need to move on from dividing people on the basis of ethnicity, on the basis of race, on the basis of so-called differences in sexuality. We need to unite Canadians on the basis of one Canadian under the law. That's the Canada I grew up with. No matter where you came from, what's your race, what's your ethnicity, what's your sexuality, we are all one under the law. And that's what Canada is about for me. And Mark Carney's not about that. Justin Trudeau was never about that. I hope Pierre Poilievre remains about that.
Yeah, I think he does. And I know things are going to go quiet for him for a lot bit. But we just hope that in the fall he will come back and he will bounce back big. His little candle is blowing out a little bit, but we want him to come back. We believed in him. We know that he has the chops. We know. But Andrew Scheer is doing a really good job in the interim, and we get to see how powerful Melissa Lantsman is. We get to see this team, right? So, any thoughts on that? And then I'm going to move on to a different topic. Poilievre, he's going to come back, right?
I hope so. I'm certainly not one of those people out there, and there are some of them who are trying to remove him as leader of the Conservative Party. There's nobody else who could do the job as well right now. I don't know anybody else in the Conservative Party caucus who could do the job, frankly. I think he is doing what he needs to do right now to prepare for that by-election. I think he's utterly failing to address Bill C-2, which is the worst possible bill in front of Canadians right now. He's failing Canadians right now over that. I have to say that. However, I think any conservative leader would be equally abysmal at addressing that law or that potential law right now. However, having said that, I think there's no other choice in terms of Canadians having a strong conservative leader, but he's in for a hell of a fight in that by-election, and nobody's acknowledging this. I've said this now for a couple of weeks. He's going to be fighting against Alberta independence people. Over 60% of the provincial government supports Alberta independence. He's going to have to every day stand up and explain why Alberta is better off as a member of Canada than it would be as an independent state. That's a tough argument. Nobody is even talking about that right now. So it's going to be a tough election campaign for him. Of course, he can't lose, but it's going to be a very tough by-election campaign for him.
Can you give us the 411 on Bill C-2? Which one is this? An act representing certain measures? Yeah, go ahead.
That's the Stronger Borders Act. And it sounds fantastic. And this is when, and Poilievre was finally asked about it yesterday at a news conference. What do you think about the Stronger Borders Act, Bill C-2? And he said, well, we're all for stronger borders. The conservative government's always said we're for stronger borders. We're going to have to read it a little bit closer to see if it contravenes democratic rights in this country. And that's all, folks. I'm gone. And that's literally what happened. He would not respond to it. He would not talk about it. What Bill C-2 does is ostensibly talk about strengthening the southern border with the United States to stop illegal immigration and fentanyl. It does nothing about the fentanyl coming in at your western ports in Vancouver. And I have talked to investigative reporters like Sam Cooper, and I'm sure you have too, who's done research in how much fentanyl gets in Vancouver. It's coming in Vancouver. That's where the fentanyl is coming in. It's from China. And what else is in this bill? Massive government surveillance. They're going to be able to look at your email, your text messages, everything you put on the internet without any sort of legal interaction. They don't need any sort of legal interaction to do that. They can do that on the assumption that you're money laundering, and you might be part of more organized crime. This puts the RCMP and Canada Post in charge of opening mail, government surveillance, and what even worries me more, it's going to ban cash transactions above $10,000. That's the beginning of a cashless society and a digital currency. And that's what Mark Carney wants to go. He's introducing all of his globalist agenda through what seemingly sounds like harmless or even good bills. That's what Carney's doing. That's what makes him dangerous.
That's right. I think I've seen it. I was going to ask you if that was the one where they don't want you to use cash for purchases over $10,000. What the hell do they care? Stay out of our lives in that way. What business is it of theirs if I want to buy a car cash? That's insane.
Precisely. And if you recall, one of the best interviews that the conservative leader ever did was when he said, I want a government that is a mind your own business government. And I remember that and I said, hey, this is a guy after my own heart. He doesn't want the government interfering in my life. But this is what Mark Carney is all about. He wants the government interfering in your life and mine.
Well, let's look at his life. We still don't even know about his little friends with the people that I won't name who have islands and things like that. How would you like somebody all up in your business? He has complete impunity to do whatever he wants to do. Nothing can touch him. And you're right. I did hear Pierre say, let the government just stay out of your life. Like, let them just stay out of your life. Now, anyway, earlier we talked about immigration coming to this country, things. I think we should talk a little bit about how much things are kicking off in the States with these anti-ICE protests. Now, I'm old enough to remember the Rodney King, the LA riots, but these protests, this is completely different. This is not like that at all. And sometimes I see on X that people equate what's going on with these anti-ICE riots to the trucker convoy. No, not at all. They are not similar at all. These ICE protests people are throwing rocks at moving vehicles, at moving police vehicles. People are lighting up, what do you call, smoke bombs and things like that. This is completely violent. I want to see if I can show some of this here. Like, do you think we're going to see something like this in Canada? Or somewhere I heard that this was already planned for the 14th.
Yes, I think we're going to see this
What do you
plan
know
for
about
Canada.
that?
I think it's well, because why? It's already happening in Canada. We let me. I mean, it drives me absolutely beyond reason when I think of people I know, like the people who have been subject to judicial review and punishment because they had a peaceful protest in Ottawa. And I'm thinking about Tamara Leach and others who came to Ottawa and told people repeatedly, don't bother the citizenry. Don't interfere with the police. Cooperate with the police. Don't do anything violent. They were completely oppressed by the government. They were punished by the government. They were found guilty of what? What did they call it? It was called, I'm sorry, it was absolutely ridiculous. Mischief. Mischief! The sort of thing that usually occurs at a wedding party. They were accused of mischief, and it took almost a year and a half to find them guilty of mischief. And now they're awaiting their sentencing. And they want to take away the truck from one of the so-called organizers of that. This is absolutely ridiculous. Neither of these, neither of Chris Barber nor Tamara Leach ever advocated violence. They advocated protest against COVID mandates. And actually, they won that battle. Thank God they won that battle. But now they continue to pay the price for that. And they continue to be prosecuted for that. And what? What did they do that was violent? What's going on in LA is going to happen in Canada because it's already happening in Canada. We've already seen protests in this country where they've not only disagreed with the police, they have contravened the law. They have occupied federal buildings. They have literally harassed and physically attacked people they don't like. I had a journalist friend of mine in Montreal attacked by a protester. Nothing happened to that protester, but she was arrested. Her name, she goes by Natalie of Montreal. She was arrested for simply being what? Not even present. She was arrested by being attacked by a counter protester. And the police did nothing to the counter protesters because the government is telling them, don't you dare touch those people because that's a counter narrative we happen to agree with. This country is beyond redemption right now. And do you think for a minute, if we have an anti-immigration protest saying, we can't send these people back, we can't stand tall on immigration policies that make sense, that these people won't as well be thrown into jail for daring to stand up. And the people who come out against them violently will be ignored. That's exactly what's going to happen. What we see in LA is a harbinger. It's a precursor of what's going to happen here in Canada, and it's already happening. I've seen it here in Ottawa. I have seen pro-Hamas supporters, and believe me, I'm not saying I'm on either side of this, because right now I am disgusted with Israel, with what they're doing in Gaza. I'm as disgusted with Israel as I am as Hamas. And I'm disgusted with people who can't spend their time protesting about Canadian situations more than they can about what's going in the Middle East. But I can tell you, these people occupied a government building. They occupied a building occupied by the official opposition, and nothing happened to them. Nothing. Nobody was arrested. Nobody was charged. And if that had been the Freedom Convoy, they would all have been in jail. So there's a two-tier justice system, Natalie. Two-tiered.
I know. Yes, I know. In the States right now, a lot of people are very anti-ICE because they think that he's coming to round up everybody, rather not just the criminals. You know what I mean? Like, he's going after violent offenders first, right? Not your everyday family. So people are protesting that because the news is telling them that that's what big bad Trump is doing, right? And let Tom Homan do his job. He knows what he's doing. And the thing is, if, like, I'm Canadian, I cannot just go live and work in the States. Like, I can't just rock up to the border and go, can I come in? Can I have a job? I'd like to work for NBC News. You know, is that okay? No, I would have to leave, or I'd have to immigrate the proper way. So, but you're absolutely right. They had the open border. All these people came in. That's one problem. But right now, Tom Homan and the team are trying to get rid of the dudes that are causing the problems. And these protests, I think, are people thinking that Trump is trying to get rid of innocent working families that mow your lawn. And it's all kicking up, and it's all kicking off. And the mainstream media is also just saying that nothing's going on here. They have Karen Bass. I believe they call her the Sea Bass as a nickname, just going, there's nothing to see here. Nothing to see here. When really, if you go on X and you see the visuals, it's extremely violent, it is dangerous, and LA looks like a bloody war zone. And if people want to have those kind of protests here in Canada, we don't have ICE in Canada. We're not doing that right now. I see no reason for a protest. I really hope it doesn't come to Canada, but you know what? And we're lunatics, right? Like, anything is possible now. Did you think think it's coming? Yeah, you think it's
I think it's coming, because I think the country is sliding into an authoritarian pit that Mark Carney is gliding us into.
Yeah. So unfortunate. David Krayden, we've spoken for an hour. Oh my goodness, that just flew by. And we have so many people watching. So thanks to you, I think. Oh, I have to say that the last time you interviewed me, I talked openly. I didn't censor myself. And you know how certain platforms don't like it if you say the truth. I was just talking all about shots and everything. And it does, like, the algorithm, if you displease the algorithm, it'll be mad at you. I found that after. So I apologize for ruining the flow. You know what I mean? I could have censored myself, but at the same time, I'm so sick of censoring myself too. Right?
Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Thanks for the time, Anita. Thanks for the time. We love you here.
Oh, I love you too. Thank you so much. Thank you all for watching. If you've watched this live, thank you so much. I'll wrap it up now. And if you've watched this live, thank you. If you've going to watch the replay later, I really appreciate it. I see there's quite a few people watching. If you have, and I've tried to put up as many comments as possible. One day I should do a show where we just go for questions, just answer all your questions. Next time you can just ask me anything. If you want to know, like, secrets about the control room, the newsroom. I used to work at CTV and Global for many years, so I can tell you, you want some gossip, just ask me and I'll tell you, right? Or just how it works in general, right? So anyway, thank you all for watching. If you like this channel, please like and subscribe. And because subscribing would really help a lot. And liking also helps push the video along so we can make more videos. Join me every Wednesday live at 5. I'll try to do something for you, and because I always have Wednesdays off from work. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you next time.